Welcome to Extra Literary Affairs, a LitFiction podcast. In this series, we're going to dive deeper into specific themes and topics that we can't fully explore in our main show. It's a space for us to unleash our creativity and discuss our ideas in more detail. Think of it as a companion to our main podcast. Just don't tell them about us. No need to make them jealous. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Extra Literary Affairs, a LitFiction podcast. I'm your host, Joey, and today I'm having an affair with William Blake. I'm going to be discussing and analyzing two poems titled The Chimney Sweeper in Songs of Innocence and of Experience. But before we dive into the poetry, let me begin with a bio to introduce you to him. William Blake was a 19th century writer and artist, and is typically celebrated as a pivotal figure of the Romantic Age. His writings and art have profoundly influenced generations of creators. Blake began writing as a child and claimed to experience his first vision, a tree filled with angels. He trained as an engraver and developed a deep appreciation for Gothic art, elements of which he incorporated into his distinctive creations. In 1800, Blake accepted an invitation from poet William Haley to live in the seaside village of Felpham and work under his mentorship. However, their relationship eventually soured, and Blake faced additional trouble in August 1803 when he forcibly removed a soldier, John Schofield, from his property after an altercation. Schofield accused Blake of assault and sedition, claiming he had cursed the king, serious charges during the Napoleonic Wars. Blake endured months of uncertainty until he was acquitted in January 1804. Shortly afterward, he and his wife Catherine returned to London. Disheartened by the lack of recognition for his works, Blake gradually withdrew from attempts to gain public success. Between 1809 and 1818, he produced few gravings, fell into poverty, and grew increasingly isolated. Yet, in 1819, he began creating a series of visionary heads, claiming that historical and mythical figures appeared to him as models. By 1825, he had sketched over 100 such figures, including Solomon, Merlin, and the ghost of a flea, one of his most renowned visionary portraits. In his final years, Blake struggled with a mysterious illness he referred to as that sickness to which there is no name. Despite his declining health, he continued to work, leaving behind unfinished projects like watercolor illustrations from Pilgrim's Progress and an illuminated manuscript of the Bible's book of Genesis. Blake passed away on August 12, 1827. Blake's genius remained underappreciated. Contemporary obituaries often focused on his eccentricities rather than his artistic achievements. For instance, the Literary Chronicle described him as one of those ingenious persons whose eccentricities were still more remarkable than their professional abilities. However, history has since honored Blake as a visionary whose work transcend his era. So, we're going to be reading poems from Songs of Innocence and Experience. Let me give you a little background on what this book of poetry is. William Blake seemingly fused engraving and verse into a unified artistic vision where neither words nor images took precedence. He created these works with the assistance of his wife, Catherine, using a groundbreaking method called relief engraving, a technique Blake is credited with inventing, and meticulously hand-colored each plate. His creations reflect a profound dedication to imagination over reason, often exploring visionary, unsettling, and sometimes grotesque themes. Visions were a lifelong source of inspiration for Blake. At age 4, he claimed to see God put his head to the window, and at 9, he witnessed a tree full of angels. These mythical experiences, intensified by the hardships of poverty and illness, deeply influenced his prolific artistic output, infusing his poetry, engravings, and watercolors with otherworldly elements. Published in 1789, Songs of Innocence was Blake's first major demonstration of illuminated printing, his innovative technique that combined text and hand-colored illustrations into a harmonious whole. The poem's rhythmic subtlety and the delicate beauty of their designs elevated simple forms like street ballads and children's rhymes into some of the most refined lyrics in English literature. In 1794, Blake expanded his works into Songs of Innocence and of Experience, showing the two contrary states of the human soul. This volume juxtaposes a slightly revised version of Songs of Innocence with Songs of Experience, a collection that explores the harsh realities of moralism, repression, and societal conflict. The poems of Experience serve as bitter and ironic counterpoints to the optimism of Innocence. Key symbolic figures underscore this contrast. The gentle lamb, representing innocence, is confronted by the tiger, a striking embodiment of energy, strength, desire, and aggression. Together, these works reflect Blake's dual vision of the human condition, combining the purity of childhood with the darker complexities of maturity. So as I said, today I'll be speaking about two poems of the same name, The Chimney Sweeper. In these poems, Blake created an incredibly unique reading experience when these are read sequentially. Let me start by reading the first poem, The Chimney Sweeper and the Songs of Innocence. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, weep, weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Dacre, who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved, so I said. Hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was a-sleeping, he had such a sight, that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark, and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. So in this poem, Blake introduces us to a young boy grappling with the profound loss of his mother and abandonment by his father. He's sold into the chimney sweeping trade. The circumstances of his fate are left ambiguous. Whether his father's decision was driven by financial desperation or an inability to care for him is open to interpretation, a deliberate choice by Blake that invites the reader's reflection. Despite his dire circumstances, the boy exhibits remarkable resilience. He becomes a source of comfort to his fellow chimney sweep, Tom Dacre, soothing him with the reassurances that his innocence remains untarnished, symbolized by his pure white hair likened to a lamb's fleece. The lamb, a recurring image in Blake's work, represents innocence and purity, qualities the boy reminds Tom they still possess even amid their suffering. Tom's inner world is illuminated in a poignant dream when he envisions the other boys trapped in black coffins, grim symbols of their bleak reality, only to be freed by an angel who guides them to a heavenly afterlife. In this vision, they are restored to carefree childhood, liberated from labor and hardship. The angel's words instill hope. If Tom remains good and righteous, he will one day reach his promised paradise. This dream renews Tom's spirit, allowing him to find fleeting moments of joy amidst his struggles. The poem has a lilting nursery rhyme quality, with brevity and musical cadence enhancing the emotional impact. This simplicity mirrors the perspective of the children, emphasizing their innocence and ignorance. For the adult reader, however, the underlying tragedy is starkly evident. The harsh reality of child labor during Blake's era looms over the narrative. Chimney sweeping was notoriously dangerous, with children as young as 3 forced into this grueling work. For boys like the unnamed protagonist and Tom, an early death was all too common. Even without explicit historical knowledge, the reader can infer the devastating toll this life would take on their frail bodies and short-lived futures. Blake's Songs of Innocence thus juxtaposes the purity of a child's perspective with the grim truths of their reality, creating a haunting and thought-provoking exploration of innocence in a world that relentlessly exploits it. Let us move on to the Songs of Experience. And again, this is the Chimney Sweeper. It's the same time. A little black thing among the snow, crying, weep, weep in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother, say? They are both gone up to the church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath and smiled among the winter snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. So we encounter the chimney sweeper again, now older or at least more mature. He comes across a younger chimney sweeper crying in the snow and asks about his parents. The child responds, they have gone to the church to pray, though it is likely they have either died or abandoned him, possibly selling him into the trade with false promises of return. The older chimney sweeper reflects on his life, revealing that he has managed to find moments of joy despite his grim circumstances. Yet this joy is met with suspicion or resentment by those around him. They question why someone in his position, sharing the same harsh life, should appear happy or content. Beneath this surface, however, he admits that his outward cheerfulness is a facade. The hardships of his life have left him just as broken as others expect. His faith remains intact, and he clings to the hope that the suffering of this life is temporary and relief awaits in the next. This evolution in the chimney sweeper's perspective marks a stark shift from the comforting figure he was in the Songs of Innocence. No longer offering solace to others, he seems resigned to the futility of such efforts, perhaps believing it's kinder to let others confront their grim reality sooner rather than later. His youthful optimism, embodied in Tom Dacre's dream of angels and a better life, has been tempered by experience, yet the dream's essence lingers within him. he still holds on to the belief that there must be something greater beyond his current suffering. The Chimney Sweeper's journey, as depicted across these poems, reflects a poignant transformation. Innocence has given way to experience, and with it, a deeper understanding of life's harsh realities. While he has come to accept his lot, his faith and hope in a better existence beyond this world remain, offering a quiet resistance to complete despair. Thank you for joining us on Extra Literary Affairs, a LitFiction podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's deep dive. Remember, this series is here to complement our main show, so be sure to listen to get the full context. Until next time, and remember, this is our little secret.